Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep-end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of headlines for you today and a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. It's a massive list.
Yeah, and we are going to go through these events one by one because each of these stories is huge on its own, from geopolitical war rooms to, well, the smartphone in your pocket. I'm thrilled you could join us.
Absolutely. So where are we starting?
Right, so our first headline is the CBI Director Selection Controversy. We have a major struggle playing out over the appointment of the next director of the Central Bureau of Investigation.
Oh, this is a big one.
It is. Leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, just submitted this really sharply worded dissent note regarding the selection process. And the details he outlines are pretty staggering.
They really offer a rare window into a process that is, supposed to be the absolute gold standard of administrative transparency.
Right.
Just for some quick context for you, the selection committee for the CBI director is just 3 people. It's the prime minister, the home minister, and the leader of the opposition.
3 people making a huge decision.
Exactly. And that structure was designed specifically to prevent any single ruling government from unilaterally controlling the nation's premier investigative agency.
But Gandhi's core argument in this dissent note is that he was effectively blocked from participating in any meaningful way.
Right.
He says he formally requested the standard 360-degree reports and the self-appraisal documents for the eligible candidates well ahead of time.
Which is standard procedure.
Yeah, but he didn't get them. Instead, according to his note, he was handed a list of 69 candidates during the actual meeting with Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah.
Wow.
I mean, I have to pause here because that just doesn't make logical sense. How do you evaluate 69 highly complex resumes for the country's top investigative post over, like, a cup of tea?
Well, the short answer is you don't, and that's the exact mechanism of his complaint. A proper evaluation for a role of this magnitude requires weeks of vetting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those 360-degree reports, they aren't just lists of previous jobs. They are deep dives into an officer's financial integrity, their family connections, their track record on sensitive cases.
Peer reviews, all of that.
All right, peer reviews too. So by withholding that packet until the meeting actually began, Gandhi argues the process was turned into a, quote, mockery.
He actually used the term institutional capture, essentially claiming the committee was reduced to a rubber stamp for a candidate the government had already pre-decided.
Which is a heavy accusation. The underlying logic here is that when transparency is bypassed in the leadership selection, the credibility of the entire agency takes a direct hit.
Right. Okay, moving to our next headline. The NEET UJ 2026 crisis in Rajasthan.
This is such a difficult situation for so many families.
It really is. Millions of students and their families are watching this unfold. The National Testing Agency, the NTA, has already canceled the exam due to the compromised integrity of the tests.
Yeah, the paper leak.
Exactly. But meanwhile, down in Rajasthan, the State Police's Special Operations Group, the SOG, has detained 15 people over the last 5 days.
Okay.
But wait, here is the detail that really jumped out from the sources. Despite holding 15 people, they haven't even filed an FIR, a first information report.
Wait, really? No FIR at all?
Nothing. Zero. And so people are asking, is that incompetence or is that a deliberate stalling tactic?
Well, that's exactly the question the political opposition is aggressively asking right now. Because in the Indian legal system, the FIR is the crucial first step. It's what actually sets the criminal justice machinery into motion.
Right.
Detaining suspects in a suspected organized leak of this massive scale without filing an FIR is, it's highly irregular. The legal clock is ticking on those detentions.
Which is why the political fallout is explosive. Former Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot and the State Congress Committee President Govind Singh Dotasra are accusing the state BJP government of suppressing the truth.
Yeah, the accusations are flying.
Dotasra is explicitly claiming that the administration is colluding with a, quote, paper leak mafia. He's suggesting local officers were instructed to keep quiet to save the state government's reputation.
So you have a situation where local law enforcement is accused of a cover-up, the state government is under fire, the national testing body has failed, and the students are just left in total uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a massive crisis of institutional trust. All right, let's pivot. Our next headline is a new approach in Tamil Nadu governance.
This one is certainly unconventional.
That's one word for it. So in Tamil Nadu, the newly minted chief minister, Vijay, is taking a wildly different path.
He's an immensely popular actor turned politician.
Right. His new party, the TVK, just decimated the long-standing dominance of the DMK and AIADMK. We are talking about dismantling a two-party duopoly that has controlled Tamil Nadu politics for over half a century.
It's a historic political earthquake.
It is. And what does he do with this massive mandate? One of his very first administrative moves is to appoint his personal astrologer as his officer on special duty.
An OSD.
Yes. Thiru Ricky Radhan Pandit Vetraval. I have to admit, I was completely thrown by this. We usually talk about textbook transparency and strict bureaucratic protocol. And here is a newly minted chief minister effectively bringing the cosmos into the administrative office.
Right. How does an astrologer fit into modern governance?
Exactly.
Well, it highlights a completely different philosophy of power. In a modern bureaucracy, an OSD is a critical, highly strategic role. They manage the chief minister's official duties, coordinate major policy initiatives.
They're the ultimate gatekeeper.
Precisely. Usually you appoint a seasoned, hardened bureaucrat, someone who knows where the administrative bodies are buried, so to speak.
Yeah, veteran.
But by appointing his personal astrologer instead, Vijay is sending a clear message about his rules of governance. He is prioritizing intense personal loyalty and deep inherent trust over traditional administrative experience.
Wow. Okay. I mean, for a newcomer trying to navigate a deeply entrenched system, he clearly feels safer with his absolute inner circle.
Regardless of how unscientific it looks on paper, yes.
Fascinating. Okay, moving on to a major legal headline. Supreme Court on women's independence. We have an incredibly inspiring judgment from the Supreme Court this week regarding modern marriage.
This was a landmark observation.
It really was. The court firmly stated that a woman's professional ambition and independence cannot be legally or socially branded as defiance.
And the specifics of the case really highlight the archaic mindsets that are still at play here.
Yeah, so an Army officer accused his wife of cruelty and desertion, and the basis for his claim. She wanted to establish her own independent dental clinic rather than abandon her career to relocate to a remote military posting with him.
Which is wild because historically in a lot of traditional legal frameworks, there was this implicit assumption that the wife's primary duty was to physically follow the husband.
Right, and just manage his household.
Exactly. But the bench, led by Justice Vikram Nath, looked at this specific case and described the husband's expectations as deeply disquieting.
The phrasing the court used was incredibly sharp. They explicitly stated that a well-educated, professionally qualified woman cannot be treated as a mere appendage to her husband's household.
The word appendage is so powerful there.
It just strikes right at the heart of the issue, doesn't it?
It does, because an appendage is an add-on, right? A limb that only exists to serve the main body. The court is legally dismantling the expectation of domestic conformity here.
So prioritizing her career isn't cruelty.
No, it's an exercise of basic human autonomy. The court is establishing that her intellectual and professional identity has equal weight to his.
That's a massive legal precedent. Okay, our next headline is Economic Austerity at Home and in Government. Due to the volatile situation in West Asia, the Indian government is preparing a massive internal austerity drive.
We are looking at severe belt-tightening here. It's focused almost entirely on curbing fuel consumption to insulate the economy from global oil shocks.
The measures are sweeping. The government is pushing for sharp cuts in non-essential ministerial travel, an expansion of public transport usage for officials, and a heavy push for hybrid and remote work.
Prime Minister Modi actually made a public appeal about this, urging everyday citizens to voluntarily adopt these austerity measures as well.
However, that mechanism of leading by example immediately hit a political speed bump.
It was almost instant, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. The Congress Party was quick to point out some glaring hypocrisy on the ground. Just hours after the Prime Minister's national appeal, newly appointed political leaders were caught doing the exact opposite.
Right, the viral videos.
Yes. Saubhagya Singh Thakur, the new chairman of the Madhya Pradesh Textbook Corporation, was filmed arriving in Bhopal to take his post, accompanied by a massive, gas-guzzling convoy of luxury vehicles.
Which perfectly illustrates the friction of enforcing top-down rules. The central government wants to set a moral precedent now in case they have to legally mandate these measures later.
But symbolic gestures fall completely flat when the public sees officials flaunting the exact excess they were being asked to sacrifice.
Exactly. It undermines the whole message.
All right, staying on economics, our next headline is the 15% gold tariff. This demand for austerity extends way beyond just saving petrol. India just abruptly hiked import tariffs on gold and silver from 6% to 15%.
That is a staggering overnight jump.
It really is. The structure of it is a 10% basic customs duty combined with a 5% agriculture infrastructure and development cess. But help me understand the mechanism here.
Okay.
Because we know from history that whenever tariffs go this high, the black market explodes. Aren't we just making gray market smugglers incredibly rich again?
Well, that is the exact fear within the jewelry industry right now. In fact, smuggling had noticeably declined when the government cut tariffs back in 2024.
Right.
The government knows high tariffs encourage smuggling, but they are currently fighting a much larger macroeconomic battle.
Which is what? Why do we care so much if people buy gold?
Because India doesn't mine its own gold. We import almost all of it, and we pay for it in US dollars. Right now, the demand for gold has skyrocketed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, inflows into India's gold exchange-traded funds surged 186% year-on-year in the March quarter alone.
Wait, 186%. Why is everyone suddenly hoarding gold right now?
It's driven by negative equity returns. The stock market is volatile, so investors are panic buying safe haven assets like gold. The problem is, when Indians buy massive amounts of gold, billions of US dollars drain out of our foreign exchange reserves.
Ah, and that dollar drain weakens the rupee.
Exactly, making every other import like the crude oil we desperately need more expensive. So the government is using this 15% tariff as a blunt instrument to hit the brakes on the dollar drain.
They are willing to accept a rise in smuggling if it stops the macroeconomic bleeding. That makes sense.
Okay, let's look at global politics. Our next headline is Trump and Xi's high-stakes summit.
The board is shifting entirely here. It really is. U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit China from May 13 to 15. This is a monumental event, the first visit by a sitting American president to China in nearly a decade.
It's huge.
Trump is sitting down with Xi Jinping, and the agenda is incredibly heavy. The escalating Iran conflict, Taiwan arms transfers, restrictions on rare earth exports.
And Trump is making some incredibly bold claims ahead of this summit. He's publicly stating that the U.S. will win the Iran conflict, quote, peacefully or otherwise.
And crucially, his repeated threats to leave NATO over Europe's refusal to join the Iran war have strained Western alliances to the breaking point.
Which is giving serious momentum to the G2 concept.
Explain that for the listener, because it's a pretty wild prospect.
So the G2 is this theoretical idea that Washington and Beijing might just decide to bypass traditional alliances like NATO or the UN entirely.
Just ignore them.
Right, and simply jointly manage global affairs. A bipolar world where the two superpowers carve up the rules of global trade and security between themselves. China loves this concept because it elevates them to absolute parity with the U.S.
So China is sitting at the table with Trump, promising global stability. But that brings us to our next headline. China's trade moves against India.
Right, because while they talk stability with the U.S., China has formally requested a WTO dispute settlement panel against India.
Yeah, bilateral consultations completely failed. China is aggressively claiming that India's tariff structures, specifically for the solar and IT sectors, are illegally discriminatory against Chinese exports.
It's a fascinating clash. China argues India's policies distort global trade. India maintains it is entirely within its rights to strengthen its domestic manufacturing and protect itself from cheap Chinese imports.
And we have to view this through the lens of the massive trade imbalance. Our trade deficit with China just hit a staggering record of $112.6 billion in the 2025-26 fiscal year.
It's a massive amount of capital leaving the country.
All right, staying with geopolitics, our next headline is the Operation Sindoor Revelation. And this story fundamentally changes how we view military dynamics in the region.
It absolutely does.
So, in May 2025, India conducted Operation Sindoor. It was a targeted military response to dismantle state-sponsored terror networks inside Pakistan following the Pahalgam attacks.
Right.
Fast forward to today. A Chinese engineer named Zhang Heng gives an interview on CCTV, China's state broadcaster. Zhang works for AVC, a massive state-owned Chinese defense conglomerate.
And what he reveals is shocking.
Yeah, he explicitly confirms that he and his engineering team provided on-site support for Pakistan's J-10CE fighter jets during that active conflict with India.
To be clear, they were not just advising from a headquarters in Beijing. They were physically deployed on the ground at the Pakistani airbase.
On the ground. He described enduring 50-degree heat, the roar of fighter jets, rushing for cover during air raid sirens. He stated plainly their mission was to ensure the Chinese supplied equipment performed at full combat potential against Indian forces.
It really exposes a brazen double game.
Exactly. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs didn't hold back in the response. They stated, Zhang's admission merely corroborates the intelligence assessments India has held for years.
But they added a very sharp warning about the reputational costs for countries that shield terrorist infrastructure. The subtext is clear. If Beijing wants to be a respected global superpower in a G2 world order, being caught providing live combat support for a state-sponsored terror state is a massive contradiction.
It is a chilling reminder of the hidden hands shaping global conflicts. Okay, let's pivot to the digital world. Our next headline is, EU targets addictive tech designs.
The rules of the digital world are facing a massive reckoning right now.
They really are. The European Commission is moving aggressively against major tech platforms under their upcoming Digital Fairness Act. They are specifically targeting TikTok, Meta's Instagram and Facebook, and X.
And Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission president, delivered a quote this week that is just brilliant.
Oh, I have it right here. She said, the core issue is not whether young people should access social media, but whether social media should have access to young people.
That framing entirely shifts the blame. For the last decade, it's been about personal responsibility, blaming the teenager's lack of willpower or the parents.
Exactly. But now the EU is targeting the specific mechanisms of addictive design. The endless scrolling, the video autoplay, the push notifications.
The psychological concept here is variable reward. These platforms are designed like slot machines, right? Dispensing dopamine at unpredictable intervals to keep you trapped.
Yeah.
The EU is arguing that these manipulative designs treat children's attention as an exploitable commodity, directly fueling epidemics of anxiety and depression.
And they are bringing out the heavy legislative artillery.
Right.
They're looking at enforcing bans on these manipulative designs and even implementing a social media delay, which means strict minimum age limits.
It is an existential challenge to the ad-driven business model of the internet.
It really makes you wonder what healthy engagement even looks like anymore. Which actually brings us to our final headline today. IPL relief as GT crushes SRH.
Ah, a much healthier organic form of dopamine.
Exactly, a classic unscripted spectacle. We saw the Gujarat Titans absolutely crush Sunrisers Hyderabad by 82 runs in Ahmedabad.
It was a clinical dismantling. SRH collapsed to 86 all out. It was their lowest ever IPL total.
And the tension was incredible because it started okay for SRH. They had GT struggling at 34 for 2 in the power play. But then Saisu Saran and Washington Sundar dug in, anchored the ship, and pushed GT to 168 for 5.
And then the SRH chase was just a disaster. Mohammad Siraj bowled a wicket maiden right out of the gate.
Prasidh Krishna and Jason Holder just carved through the lineup. There's this moment where Washington Sundar took this tumbling catch to dismiss Nitish Reddy. The collective gasp of a packed stadium. You just can't script that.
You really can't. It's shared reality. Connection without algorithmic manipulation.
Exactly. Well, let's take a breath. We have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
We looked at the fight for transparency in the CBI, the NEET-U crisis, and unconventional governance in Tamil Nadu. We discussed the Supreme Court redefining modern marriage, the macroeconomic battle behind India's 15% gold tariff, and the political hypocrisy around austerity.
And then all the geopolitical shifts.
Right. Trump's visit to China, the WTO dispute between India and China, and the shocking Operation Sindoor revelations. Plus the EU's battle against big tech and a brilliant IPL match.
It is a lot to process. But what I hope you take away from this is that these headlines all represent a constant, fundamental shifting of the boundaries that govern your choices.
The rulebook is being rewritten live. And before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought. If Europe successfully forces tech giants to strip away their slot machine designs for teenagers, will that fundamentally change the internet for adults too?
It's a great question.
Could we see a near future where a clean, chronological, non-addictive dumb feed becomes a premium luxury feature that we actually have to pay a monthly subscription for just to reclaim our own attention?
Peace of mind is a premium service. It's entirely plausible.
Think about that the next time you find yourself scrolling late at night. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the rules, and we'll catch you next time.